Alright, so I'm sitting in the TVR and I'm about to do some work on this gear lever here because we got a couple of issues going on. The first issue is that this knob is very loose. As the gearbox heats up and cools down and heats up and cools down, that metal just expands and contracts and this thing comes loose. So I'd like to go ahead and tighten this up and maybe put a little itty bit of glue on there to keep this thing from coming loose again. The other issue is that if you tighten it all the way, there's probably a nut under here that's stopping it, but if I tighten it as far as it will go, there's no way to get this to line up right because first gear should be like that. Obviously first gear is not towards the driver. So we're going to adjust that nut or stopper a little bit. And then also, I'd like to take this ring off and kind of see what's underneath here, because you can see it's not quite all the way in there, the boot. So I might adjust this a little bit. And I'd like to see what this looks like, because not all TVRs have this ring. A lot of them just have this boot that just goes down into basically a hole here, and it's maybe a little bit cleaner looking, but I might have to leave this here because of those screws and bolt holes there. Also, I don't really like how this boot touches the gear knob here. I'd like to have some room so that my finger is not, rubbing up and making this all dirty. And I'd like to be able to grab that without touching the boot here. So I'm going to try to adjust that nut so that this will be in the right place. And I want to try to move this boot down if I can. So we'll go ahead and get started. The first thing I'm going to do is start undoing these little nuts here. Okay, so I got the trim piece lifted up. You can see it's kind of glued in a couple of spots underneath there. But then this ring is screwed down into the center console here. So I think I'm going to go ahead and leave this ring on the car. But what I'm going to do is go ahead and take the gear knob off. We'll see if we can turn this bottom boot piece down a little bit to try to be able to tighten this ball down a little bit more. Okay, so this is what it looks like now. There's no bottom nut or anything on there. Looks like the ball just screws all the way down. So what I'm going to do is once I get the boot back on there, I'm going to put just a little dab of glue onto the threads here. Not too much because I want to be able to get that ball off in the future, but just enough glue just to hold that thing on there so it's not going to come loose again with the hot and the cold. And then also I was able to pull off the entire boot cover, so you can see it's kind of glued on in various spots, and then this is just a ring there. So I got my shirt to protect the leather here. So I'm going to go ahead and put that boot back on, and we'll screw that boot and the ring back on the top. And then the last thing I'll do is use the glue and screw that shifter knob back onto the top, and we'll put that in the right spot this time. Alright, just getting everything lined up now. Okay, so I got the boot back on. It looked like I could remove this ring if I wanted to. It's just screwed down to the other ring that's underneath it. But if I took that whole piece off, I think there's going to be some marks here, which you can kind of see already. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this ring here. It'll probably look the nicest that way if I Just leaving that here. So I have this back on. The screws are mostly in. Had to use both hands to get those screws to line up and start rotating down. So this thing is only going to go down so far until it hits that other piece. So what I'll do is after I tighten up all these screws nice and even, then that'll be good, and then I just have to screw on the ball. So instead of going down all the way until it's tight, I'm gonna turn it down most of the way and make sure the first gear is lined up where it should be, and I'll use the little dab of glue to kind of hold that in place, because if I screw it down all the way, then it ends up looking like that. So we're just going to screw it down most of the way and use just a little bit of glue. Them all even, Steven. Okay, got all the screws on here nice and tight. Everything's even. Before I put the ball on the last time and put a dab of glue, I'm just gonna screw it on just to make sure that the boot is not gonna get stuck and that I can move everywhere. So just making sure that it's not getting caught up on the boot or anything. So everything looks fine. That one piece that was kind of cut or kind of broken, I stuck on this side so that it's a little bit less noticeable. Alright, and now we just gotta put on this ball one last time and put a little bit of glue to stick it in place. Okay, so I'm using this Loctite blue super glue here. It's the Ultra Gel. It says it's made for temperature extremes and also vibrations, and it says it's made for the outdoors too, so should be the perfect kind of glue to use for this, since it's going to be outdoors and getting hot and cold. So there's a little string of glue that I put in there. Should be enough to kind of hold it in place and, you know, eventually break it off if I need to. So we'll go ahead and screw it down. Okay, I'm gonna go down all the way and then back it off a little bit to where it's lined up correctly. Okay. Okay, I'll make sure that it's in first gear. First gear is pointing towards the front, which is where it should be. Alright, there we go. Alright. Alright. Gear knob is on. First gear is in the front, where it should be. And then, unfortunately, I couldn't move this boot down like I wanted to, but, you know, oh well, it works. And it's all put back together now, so there we go. Just gotta let it cure, let it sit there for a day, and then I can go for a drive tomorrow. And there we go.